Welcome to this week's program. I'm Shannon Loehrke. Continuing to develop affordable and clean renewable energy and to provide a qualified workforce to handle the energy needs of the future are just some of the hoped-for outcomes sought in the energy portion of the Commerce and Energy biennial budget. Joining me in the studio to talk more about Minnesota's energy future is the chair of the Senate Energy and Utilities Committee, Senator Dave Senjem. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you so much. I was happy to be here. And I think it's the first time at the table as an energy chair. Maybe not, but...
yes, it is. Absolutely.
Is that right?
Yes.
All those years in capital investment, yes.
So Minnesota has successfully moved the needle away from fossil fuels in many areas, but 2 of every 3 homes still rely on natural gas. Natural gas is a cleaner fossil fuel, and yet it is still a fossil fuel. This year, the legislature passed some key legislation to address Minnesota's dependence through the Natural Gas Innovation Act. How will this new law help Minnesota move away from its dependence on natural gas?
Well, Shannon, it will over a long period of time, obviously, but so much emphasis has been put on power plants, utilities, emissions, and cars, and so on and so forth, and that's probably been discussed at this table, but not so much in the area of how we heat our homes or natural gas, how we cook our meals, et cetera, dry our clothes, and you know, that's a fossil fuel as well. And so CenterPoint Energy came to us early in the session last year, and they're seeing the future with respect to natural gas. So we're not going to shut off natural gas anytime soon, for sure. But they also realize that they have to do something with respect to how, how we cook, how we heat, how we dry our clothes relative to natural gas. So we have the Innovative Natural Gas Act, and that purports to look at, well, how can we, does it all have to be fossil fuel? Can we obtain it through anaerobic digestion, manure, et cetera, or other organic materials, and or can we use hydrogen, which is probably the fuel of the future in our heating systems. And that's not to say we're going to have hydrogen in our heating our dryers or our stoves or our furnaces immediately. But the way it's happening in this world is they're interjecting a little bit at the time, and maybe it's 5%, maybe it's 10%, and so on. But incrementally, all that does is overall lessen emissions, and so there's a future there. It's a long one, but again, CenterPoint Energy and a few other energy companies across the country are realizing that and believe that they need to get into some pilot programs to start exploring this further. That's what this act is all about.
And so this allows places like CenterPoint Energy to begin that process.
Right.
It incentivizes them to continue to look for geothermal,
Sure.
I think I read, and other ways
exactly.
of creating power for our homes, businesses, things like that.
Exactly, and that's and again, they understand that over time there'll be enough public pressure on those emissions, because there's a lot of them. Just look at the houses in the wintertime, and you can see the smokestacks, so to speak, or the chimneys, and that's not smoke. That's just water vapor. But nonetheless, our homes use a lot of fossil fuel to keep them warm.
Yes, they do. There is money in this bill, $2.5 million, to promote jobs of the future by initiating a pilot program to train workers for clean energy careers. What do you hope pilot projects like this will achieve?
So this is a pilot project specific in North Minneapolis. It's to some degree an equity project, but what we hope it's going to achieve is further individuals that are frankly now in the center of the city and get them involved in renewable energy and renewable energy education and ultimately work at certain levels. We do, again, teach some of this certainly in our community technical colleges, but this is a unique little college or training center in North Minneapolis that's going to somewhat do the same and prepare them then to get further certification within our community colleges. So we think that's important. We think that we need more diversity, more equity in the staff, the field staff that puts up wind, solar, et cetera, et cetera. This will help.
Speaking of education, in the coming months, new installations of solar panels may begin to appear on school buildings, and that activity of solar panels on school buildings may even make it into curriculum, teaching kids about renewable energy. This is the Solar on Schools grants. What more can you tell me about this?
Well, it's something that we've just touched into, but we're getting into a little bit stronger now. $8 million, actually $16 million statewide. And that's to assist schools in a couple of ways, certainly from the standpoint of educating the kids, but also from the standpoint of, if you will, holding down energy costs within schools. They can do this in a fairly significant way. But again, the kids will learn. It's a training tool. It's a teaching tool. Actually, this year in this particular bill, we added one little inclusion there, and that's that going into any of these school buildings that have it, there will be a little meter on the wall. It will tell you what the solar panels are generating and what they have generated over the course of, say, the past year or so. Again, it will be there for the public to look at and be curious about and things like that. So again, just to further expose our students to the future of energy, and that's solar is part of that.
And speaking of solar, there's $5 million per year for the next 2 years that will go to Xcel Energy for their solar rewards program, so homeowners can get some help incorporating solar power into their homes. And I have to admit, I've looked at solar panels. It has seemed cost prohibitive to me, but I wonder how important are efforts like this to get your average person like me to take that next step?
Well, it's an enticement. It's a couple $1,000s, and that may kind of swing the deal for you and or anyone else. And so, yeah, we think it's important. We want to see more personally powered, if you will, generation off people's houses, and to the extent we can have that, we'll have to produce less in larger facilities. So it all adds up over time. This is a long-term process, so to speak, but we're just sort of trying to decentralize energy, but also again, this homegrown energy, so to speak, is part of the totality of what we need to go forward.
Back to the jobs and citizens, towns. Some places in Minnesota get a lot of their tax base from the power plants that exist where they are. Some of those power plants are going to shut down. So the Department of Employment and Economic Development, or DEED, has developed a grant program for communities that have lost or will lose their coal-fired nuclear energy or natural gas facilities run by public utilities. I think Becker may be a city that is confronting this issue. What do communities facing these kinds of changes need to know about this program? Well,
they need to know that it's vitally important, and vitally important to the state. I would say, and people don't realize this, and I became aware of it maybe just a couple of years ago, by about 2035, which is, all in 15 years or so, maybe 14, there will not be a power plant, maybe with the exception of the Monticello nuclear power plant, running in Minnesota that's producing energy today on a hot Minnesota day. And so we have a lot of work to do in terms of catching up. And these plants, along with them, as they do finish their life cycle, so to speak, have a lot of employees and a lot of tax base associated with that. Tremendous effects, whether it's Oak Park Heights or Red Wing or Monticello or anywhere else that has a major power plant. These people are going to be affected. These communities are going to be affected. So how do we now, 14 years earlier, begin to kind of face this problem with these communities and try to keep them as whole as possible and let them move into a different kind of future? So that's what this is all about. It's important, and the other thing we did do here, and it's a different bill, but as these utilities close down, there's also a bill, Senator Matthews' bill, that has to do with these employee benefits. How do we retrain them? How do they keep their pensions, or keep what they have alive that through no reason of their own is going away simply because of changing times.
Finally, before we go, there was a ceremonial bill signing this week by Governor Walz for the ECO Act. Now, Senator Jason Loehrke is the one who carried this legislation, but when it was passing on the Senate floor, you called it landmark. It's also being touted as an example of democracy at work. Can I have your final thoughts on the ECO Act of 2021? Yeah,
it's a great bill, understand that, but we talk so much about new generation and all this stuff, but this is about conservation. The kilowatt you don't have to produce is the cheapest kilowatt you can have, and so we're talking here about new ways to conserve energy and enticements for utilities to use to, in fact, cause us to use less energy, and whether it's different kinds of, whether it's a heat pump or whatever it might be, some enticements, some rebates, not unlike the little light bulbs the utilities company used to give off, but give away rather, but they've given them all away, and so there's no more way to save energy here. This will take us to a different step, so it's a good thing.
Senator David Senjem, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much, Shannon.